What's going on, guys? Alright, I don't know if anybody recognizes this or knows what this is, but this is the manifold I made for the pressurized CO2 system in my planted aquariums. The main line from the CO2 tank comes in, let's see, through the regulator there, through this braided line, into the back of the manifold there, and then comes out to these 4 needle valves, 2 bubble counters there, and these were just 2 barbed connections. This is a big, awkward, ugly setup. It's real heavy, and I keep chasing down leaks, so I'm going through CO2 cylinders way too quickly. I got a 20-pound tank, and it just lasted me like 4 weeks this past time. So I'm going to try and upgrade and try something a little bit different. It was recommended to me to try some of these push connect fittings, so I'm going to work with some of those and see if I can't put something together a little bit better than what I have here. Alright, I'll keep checking back in as I'm doing this. Alright, here, let's finally finish talking about my CO2 setup. I have had a hell of a time with these things. I got rid of that other manifold that was made out of brass, and I replaced it by building this setup here, which doesn't really take up any less space. If you can see back there, that is the new manifold. I believe I've shown it in other videos, well, other clips of this same video. After putting that all together, let's see, I began shooting this video, Jesus, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now. I put together this setup using these project boxes with my needle valves coming out of them and the bubble counters sticking out up top. Since then, I've gone through probably 5 or 6 other bubble counters because I keep getting leaks right from the top of the bubble counter where the brass connects to the acrylic. I got the slightest little leak, I would crank it down and the acrylic would crack in half. I'd wrap it in Teflon plumber's tape, crank it down, find a leak, crank it down some more, crack it in half. I just couldn't do anything to make these things not leak. So what I finally did was I sealed them completely using silicone. I put a bead of silicone around the threads there and there, and then I tightened them up, already filled with water. Now, I'm not sure what I'm going to do when the water evaporates. I did not put check valves between the output from the bubble counter and whatever diffusion method I happen to be using in each individual tank. This one has an atomic diffuser there, and you can't even see it through the plants on the other side, but there's a tiny little bubble counter diffuser thing. Up here, we're using a fluval ceramic disc diffuser, and there's the same in there. You'll never see it behind the plants, but it's there, I promise. So what I tried here was no check valve in the line coming out of the bubble counter into the tank. My hope there is that at night, when the solenoid shuts off the CO2 going to the manifold, just like an air stone in a tank, if you turn it off, will draw water back into the line. I'm hoping water will come back down through these lines and fill up the bubble counter a little bit and keep them full for me that way. So the only check valve I have in each line is between the manifold, which is back there. Each of the 4 lines going to a bubble counter has a check valve in line between there. What you don't want is any water making its way back into your regulator. Up here, this doesn't matter. This can all stay wet. There is a check valve there, so no water is going to get from the bottom of the needle, bubble counter down into the needle valve. The only water that can be anywhere is from that point through that line back into a tank. So hopefully I have finally solved my issue. I'm still working on dialing this all back in. My intent here was to make this a little more manageable, a little less clumsy and a little less awkward. I do not think I've accomplished that. If anything, it's even more awkward and clumsy and less manageable now. But hopefully it works without any leaks. Ideally, once this thing is working properly, it's a set it and forget it. I shouldn't really ever have to touch it other than to just come down, monitor my gauges, and make sure I'm not running out of CO2, so that way I don't gas any fish. This is a single stage regulator. Anyone who's done any research on CO2 setups knows that a dual stage regulator is ideally what you want to use. That theoretically prevents what's affectionately referred to as end of tank dump. And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to cut this short. Alright, that's it. Later, guys.
What we do here is go back.